has worked. So welcome. Today we are working on Blitz Who. Blitz Who is part of the first responder kit maintained by Brent Ozar. And for those who have watched the previous recording, you might remember that we tried to add some parameters last year. Tried to retrieve the parameters last year so that we could see them, see what stored procs were running as, what parameters are running with. And it worked pretty well for the cached, but it did not work well for the live plans. So today we are going to make that work. And so let's try jumping back over to the code again, and I'll explain what we're looking at again now that I've got sound. So Brent had a repro step here of how to make things break. He's got a stored proc looking at the Stack Overflow database, and then you just call it with 1 and 1 and call it with 2 and 2. And so that's what we're going to do here. This is Brent's test stored proc, 1 and 1, 2 and 2, and we'll get those running. And let me just run that back in. And so when we run this, Blitz Who, we end up getting disconnected, and SQL gives us a system assertion check has failed. Cannot continue because the session's in a kill state, and so SQL basically kills our session so it doesn't kill the server. Thanks, SQL. I've tracked it down over the Christmas break. The problem is with the fetching of the live parameters. So let me comment some of this out. So what we're going to do, we have some code in here which says if we have access to this DMV, which is only newer versions of SQL Server, then we want to fetch them. And if we don't, then just put nothing into those columns. So we're just going to always put nothing into those columns for the moment. So we're just going to comment out that top section and the end of that if statement. Run that in, completed. Alright, so now if we run this, just going to check my other windows are still running, they are. Now if we run this, we get our answer back and we get the cache parameters. So we can see that this session here is running with test 1 being 1. That's weird actually, I don't know what that's telling me. Test 1 int 1, test 1 int 2, test 2 int 1 and test 2 int 2. Not what I was expecting. Let's have a look at the query plan. So the query plan is just XML, and down the bottom here, the test 1 is an int and the compiled value is 2. I feel like I've got 2 sets of cache parameters in here, which is kind of cool, but also not. I'm just curious what happens if I run this again. Now that those are stopped, I get nothing there, which makes sense. What happens if I put in 3 and 3 and 3? Have a look at that. Right, so you can see this still comes up with test 1 is 1, test 1 is 2, test 2 is 1, and test 2 is 2. I feel like it's been compiled twice somehow. Not sure how that's working out. But regardless, you can see that we are getting results there. It's not crashing, which is definitely the answer we're looking for at the moment. You can see here as well that the live query plan and live parameter infos are both null. So the problem appears to be that when SQL Server tries to reach for the live query plan using the DM exec query statistics XML dynamic view, it crashes out the server. It seems if you connect that thing twice and it has more than 2 queries running, 2 or more queries running, then the whole thing breaks. So we need to stop that from running more than once. So there's a couple of options we could do there. We could put it into a CTE, and I think that would solve the problem. But the safer option, and the one we're going to go with, is we're actually going to put it into a table variable. I know table variables are bad, but in this case, it's not a bad option. We're not chucking huge amounts of data in there. We're not searching through it. It's going to be pretty straightforward. And by putting it in a table variable, what that will allow us to do is fetch all the data once for every session. We're just going to chuck them all in there, and then we will join to that based on the session ID and pull out the actual query that's running. So that's the plan. Let's see how we do that. I'll switch back to the code, and let's have a look at what we need to do. All right, so we can see a little bit further down here, we already have a table called blocked. Blocked, here we go, declare blocked, blah, 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 blah. And so we're going to declare another table in here. We're going to call it declare at live query plans table, and it's going to have a session ID, which will be an int, and we're going to have a query plan, which will be XML. XML, close bracket on that. Probably should be consistent to make that all uppercase, and that'll be not null, and that'll be not null, just to make that a little bit neater. Alright, and then we're going to insert some data in there. So what are we going to insert? Great question, I don't know yet. We're going to select from the DM, hang on, let me find it again. DM, nope, it's back up the top. Back up to this yellow bit that we commented out. This thing here. sys.dm exec. Forgot the sys. So we're going to select from here. Now the session ID we don't know exactly, so we need to get a list of all session IDs. And we're going to do that. If we have a look down the bottom here, we'll see how it currently joins to that to get the session ID, and we're going to do the same thing. Output blah 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 blah. Nope, it's up above that bit. Just before the sort orders, here we go. From nope, further up. This one here. Sys.dm exec sessions S. And that'll get us our session ID. So we're going to go from sys.dm exec as S. Outer apply. Actually, we could just cross apply here, right? Because we only care about the ones that are actually in there. And you can see that brings back a whole bunch of stuff. My proc's not running anymore, so let's run both of those. And all we actually want is the query plan. And there we go. There's my 3 query plans. One of them will be for the current session. We also want the session ID, don't we? Need to be able to put that in. Session ID and query plan. So 53 is this one here that's running. 69 and 70 are the other two. We could exclude the current one. Where s.session ID not equal. How do I get my current session ID? Equal find current session ID. I thought it was add session ID or something. SPID, that's the one. SPID. That should just get me the 2. There we go. We don't need the Blitz2 query to come back in here. That one's far too big. And not really needed. Alright, so that's what we're going to insert. So let's go back to Blitz2. Let's find where we created that table back up here. So we've got our table declared. Now we're going to insert into at live query plans. Select all of that. Let's fix up the tabbing. Something like that. Alright, so we now have all of our query plans in here. Just going to run that in. Let's just, for now, let's just put in an extra, put in a semicolon there. And then just select start from at live query plans. Live query plans. And check our test.procs are running again. Start those back up. And we can see there's our test live query plans. So we now have the XML, we're getting them just once, we're not crashing out, which is great. And so now we just need to put it into our results set. So coming back up the top then to our commented out code. Somewhere up here. Where's my commented out code gone? There it is. Nope, that's not it. In here. Here we go. So previously we're left joining to this. We're doing this set query stats XML select. We're going to have to move a chunk of this stuff all the way down to where we're inserting that table. So let's do that first. So we're going to cut this out from here. Are we? No, we're going to remove this first, I think. Let's find where this gets used. My IDP session is not responding. There it goes. So that's where we're putting it in. So we're going to change that slightly. We'll come back to that one. Let's what can I do here? Note to fix this, just to make things nice and red. Let's find that again. Computer's really struggling there at the moment. Is that it? Get declared. So we're not going to declare it anymore. I'm going to get rid of this whole bit. And I'm going to get rid of that bit below it as well. And the bit above it as well. We're going to get rid of all that. This one here. No, I might leave that one for the moment. We'll come back and fix that one in a sec. We're going to cut this bit here out. We are going to... We'll still set the first one, but we don't need to set these two anymore because we've got rid of them. That can go there. Now down here where it's red, that's a bit I need to fix. But before we do that, we need to fix up our table. So obviously we don't want to select it out here anymore. We need to decide. Here's a little bit of a tricky bit. So we've got two options here. We could either not insert records into the table variable, but still declare it. And that means we can always left join to it depending on the version. Or we can not declare it and not insert. And then later on we'd also have to not add the column. So I'm going to go for this, the first option there. So I'm going to declare that table every time, but only insert data if we actually use it. And so I'm going to do that with this bit here, this if statement. So I'm going to turn that into some dynamic SQL. Actually, no, we don't have to turn it into dynamic SQL. We can do that for real. I'm going to end that string there. So if exists, select star from system, blah, 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 and then we go query plan. Then we are going to begin, and then we're going to set, oh, that's in a different check actually. Interesting. I thought that was in the same select statement, but it's not. Where's the blocking check? How does that get used? It's blocking check plus that. We're going to use blocking check and we're going to rename it. So down here we will set that blocking check equal to our blocking check plus insert into live query plans, blah blah blah. That should still work. And that's all we need from that bit. And then, this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. I think it's going to work. Now, we don't need that outer apply anymore. Actually, hang on, before I delete that, let's find where it was done. Restats XML. So instead of doing that, we're just going to the left join. We're using outer applies here for blocked, so let's do an outer apply. Outer apply. What was the name of my temp table? Sorry, table variable. It was live query plans. We're going to do it as QS_live because that'll just keep some of our other code working. As QS_live. This bit's too hard. Apply select one. Oh, we could do our work in here. How to apply? What if we do it in here? So what if we do select top one query plan from live query plans where s.session ID from the outside table equals, let's do live query plans equals q.session ID. And we don't need the blocking one, so that should work. We don't need this anymore. We don't need to split that up anymore. We'll go as one. So we're going to out apply that. And then what I think we're going to do, if I can make it work, which I currently can't. What's happened there? Extra closing thing. Semicolon there. And hey James, welcome. Let me just drag all this back to the left. Alright, so we're going to insert all that stuff. And then we're going to somehow select this out at the end, I think. So let's take this bit, because that's the magic that I need at the moment. Actually, no, let's do this bit first. So we need to cast all that. And that belongs where this currently is. And we're going to cast coalesce. So we either have the QS live query plan, because that left join worked, or we don't because there was nothing to join to, in which case we'll get a null, so the coalesce will then print out this thing here, which will give us that link to work out how to turn on live plans. So we don't need the query stats, we don't need that one anymore. Delete that. Let's just take this whole bit out for the moment. And we'll run that in, and let's see what that does. Those are both running. That gives us the right answer. And so blitz2 followed with errors. Invalid object name live query plans. What did I miss there? Live query plans. From at. we go. Nope, still not happy. Invalid column name session ID. What did I call that column? Session underscore ID. There we go. IDP session has slowed right down. I'm not exactly sure why. Alright, session underscore ID. It works this time. There we go. Alright. So we now have the live query plan coming back, which looks very much like the other query plan, except it kind of gives you this progress of how far through we are. So we're about 62% of the way through there. Show execution plan XML. We are going to come down to the bottom, and you can see we have this extra thing here. So we have the runtime value. Woohoo! We did get a gold, James. Well done, us. So you can see here that the compiled value is 2, but the runtime value is 3. So that's the bit we want to expose. We're back to where we started, so we now get the live query plan, which is what you currently get. We've got this extra column, which is awesome, and we just need one last column, which is going to be that really ugly XML stuffing stuff that's going on there. I say stuffing stuff just because it's called stuff, the method that we're using. So I'm just going to take this bit here, and I'm wondering whether we can put that into our outer apply down the bottom. It's very eloquent. Not sure what you mean by that, James. My code is usually a mess. Alright, so we're going to uncomment these bits. And so it's going to come from q.queryplan. Oh, stuff is such an eloquent way. Yeah, it's a useful word, stuff. So we are using this function called stuff. And so what stuff does, actually, let's see the easiest way to do this. Let's select that. Jump back over to our window here, and I'll show you what's going on. So we've got this thing here. Let's just down the bottom here. What have I missed? The double quotes. Let's double quotes with single quotes because we're in here. And we're going to insert. Let's just do it with live query plans as that. Select all of that. We can format it nicely. So without the stuff, we can that. What have I missed? Ah, I didn't need a bracket there. And I'll need this one back. Alright, so without the stuff, and with my test queries running, you can see here we get our columns out. And so this is what we want, right? So we want to see that test was compiled with the value 1, but it's actually running with the value 3, and test 2 was compiled with 1, it's actually running with 3. So the compiled value is what happened the first time, and the actual is what's happening this time. We'll change this to 4 and pick a number, 209. Let's start that up, then we'll see here. Start that. It says I did. Ah, there you go, the top one. So we'll see here that we get, you know, different numbers again. Did I start that running before I changed the numbers? Let's stop that for a second, try again. And you can see here that it was compiled with 1, but it's actually running with 209, compiled with 1, actually running with 4. So this bit here in the middle, what we're doing is we're looking for the nodes in XML that match the path, show plan XML, batch sequence, batch statements, STMT, simple, query plan, parameter lists, column references. That's the part that we're looking for in the XML. So remember XML, query plans are just XML, and down the bottom we're looking for this bit here. So it's just the path all the way through. Once we find this column reference, we can then pull out the column name, the data type, compile value, runtime value. That's what we're trying to do. By querying this XML path, what that means I can then do is actually find each of these values, so node.data.value, to get the column, the parameter data type, compiled value, runtime value. I'm sticking those all together as a string, so you can see here we're putting in the literal parts of the string, like the word actual, and we're putting commas between it. So you can see test1, comma, test2. As is always the problem is you need to work out what to do with your commas. So we need to either put a leading comma in and somehow strip it out, or put a trailing comma in or strip it out, or have some sort of complex logic to say whether or not to add it. What stuff does is we can say, take this string and starting at character 1 for 2 characters, replace the first 2 characters with the following string, empty string. So we take these 2 characters out and we put this character here in. Stuff is awesome. We now lose all the data because our query is finished. So we should now lose the initial comma. Here's the plan. No. Oh, now that's concerning. Because that is the error that we're trying to avoid. I think that's because we're in a CTE. Pretty sure if we just run this bit here, we won't get the error. Yeah, so the CTE is definitely a bad idea. That's okay, we're not using the CTE in our actual code here, so let's jump back in there. So we now have this as live parameter info. Again, it now doesn't matter about the version because we'll always have that table. We just may or may not have any data in it. We're doing an outer apply, which is like left join, where the session ID equals that. And so now we just need to go find that bit where we broke it all, which is back up here somewhere. Here it is. And instead, we can even get rid of this bit. We are just going to grab, what did I call that table? Query qslive dot live parameter info. qslive dot live parameter info as, just so it doesn't get confused later, as live parameter info. Now let's get rid of that space just to, let's line that up kind of nicely. What have we done here? It's got spaces the whole way. Who uses spaces? I know, tabs and then spaces. Even more confusing. Alright, let's run that in. Let's check our sample code's still running. This one here stopped, so we'll start that up again. That's been run in. So if we run this now, hopefully, there we go. So we now have our actuals coming out. Everything is running, it's not breaking. I am feeling really good about that. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to Git, and I am going to check this in. So we're going to add live parameters and cached parameters into Blitz. Commit that to my local. And that's going to be about it. I will create a pull request shortly and send that up to Brent, and he can review that and do what he likes with it. But I am feeling awesome about that. That has been bugging me for a couple of months in the back of my mind, so I'm happy to finally have an answer that works. At least it works for the test case, and for now that's good enough for me. So that's about it for today. I need to head off to my real job and work out what I'm doing for the day. I need to get some kids to school as well, which is always fun. Thanks for joining in, and hopefully see you next time.